Hey, awesome. Thanks, Jody.
You're so welcome. Got here just in time.
Hey, Kenny. Long time no see.
Howdy.
Has anybody heard if Cody's made it down there okay?
I haven't heard from him yet. He should probably be getting close. Probably not there yet. He didn't get out till about 9-ish.
Oh,
So-
gotcha. Yeah,
Took a little longer getting them samples ready than,
yeah.
I mean,
Real
I knew it
good.
would take a while, but-
As long as he gets in there, that's all that matters, I guess.
Right.
Thanks for coming today, you guys. I think we'll probably just sort of give it a few minutes for people to wander in, and then we can kind of talk about how to kind of structure a little bit, and then maybe dive in. That we, since COVID, the Board of Realtors has not met really very regularly at all, and we've kind of Zoomed quarterly, but we've previously, like in a perfect world, we meet monthly and have like regular speakers and try and stay like up to date on things that are happening that are relevant to the work. And then but with COVID, it's just been so isolating. And so this is our first Zoom workshop kind of thing. And the other thing is the reality of our schedules is that they're really all over the place. And so it's awesome to have the recording tool so we can share it and people can kind of tune in whenever they have time.
Good, sounds good.
Kara, question. Do you have a copy of the ordinance that's going to be going in front of the council?
I don't, I'd reached out and kind of hoped we could get a copy that we could circulate around. And I think just wires got crossed ahead of time. So that's when I spoke with Ashley before, we talked about kind of getting that out and around. And I think it may make sense to do this in sort of two parts and have you guys, Public Works, talk about kind of how we got here and what you're seeing in implementation, and then maybe like a follow-up where we talk a little bit more about like the ordinance passing process and some of those other pieces that we anticipate. And it's going to be tempting to get into sort of specific situations. I know there's one right now that you guys are dealing with where we're worried about asphalt before the asphalt plant closes and stuff. And so those are, questions where that emergency part of the ordinance, where if we can't get work done before it closes, that the city manager can grant like that hardship timeline.
Appeal process, appeal for hardship.
Yeah, my suspicion is that there will be times of the year where we see that a lot just due to how long it takes
Absolutely.
to get work done. So
Yeah.
let's see, 2:02. Let's give it like just a couple more minutes and we can kind of kick off.
Jim.
in the back room.
Sorry, toddler in the house.
Can you hear mine?
No, I can't.
Good. See how long that lasts. We just seriously had a 15-minute wrestling match about how she had to wear clothes because I was going to be on this work call with the video. Like, please, please. We'll see.
See, so far I've got everybody in. There we go.
Guys in Paradise again. My favorite was when your Zoom background was Pee-wee's Playhouse, and I really thought that was your living room.
I did too.
Man.
I'm in paradise with a turtleneck and a sweater vest. Yeah. How many are you waiting to get on before you start?
I was just kind of waiting for the 205 mark for no particular good reason.
Oh, okay. Not 205 people, I hope.
No, God, that would be a long wait. Oh, awesome. So just from the city of Tillamook, welcome to the Tillamook Board of Realtors kind of workshop meeting. I don't know if you can kind of see, I'm sure you can just see everybody as they're popping in. And just so you know, you have this sort of range of people in front of you that are the Board of Realtors MLS host is kind of home to anybody throughout the county where they practice. And so, but not all of those agents are practicing regularly in the city of Tillamook. So this topic will be more interesting to some agents than others. And the folks in front of you represent agents who have been in this for a really long time, agents who've been in this for a very short time, and some who are practicing very full-time, some who are practicing very part-time. RTRE, are you Rob Trask Real Estate?
Yes, it is.
And then
Who is it?
ooh, let's guess. Don't tell us. Is it Dusty? Okay, tell us. Nobody else wants to play the guessing game.
Dusty called and talked to me about this here a couple weeks ago, just so you know.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot because I mean it's important, and we want to make sure that we're doing a good job representing our clients. And then TBOR title is it's Steph.
It's Steph.
Perfect. So TBOR title is our local the local escrow office that we have that probably handles, man, 90% of our transactions in the city of Tillamook probably go through TBOR titles. So, and they're a huge partner for us in terms of trainings and resources and kind of a touchstone because our offices all work so independently of each other. So without any further rambling, let's jump into it. So we, I know in the email I promised you guys Nathan George. It's been kind of a bananas day at the city, and in talking, we've kind of restructured. So we have the public works team, and Ashley Rushing is there also, and they're going to just talk to us a little bit about sort of how we got here, the process in building the ordinance, and kind of bring us up to speed. What we're hoping is that we'll have some good questions, some follow-up, some input, and then we may kind of do a round two and talk a little bit about implementation of the ordinance and those kind of pieces and a check-in. Do you guys want to just introduce yourselves and then tag team your presentation? Kenny, you want to start?
Kenny Ullman here, wastewater treatment plant supervisor and
Oh, you do
collection
this one?
supervisor.
I do too.
Probably most of this ordinance that's getting.
They'll give a $750 carpet credit too. So I don't know.
You said you like stuff going on during Zoom meetings.
Let's make sure I'm on mute.
There we go. Go ahead. He muted himself.
Sorry, we're redoing our what the hell is it? Our closet, and things are going in and out of this place like nobody's business.
I'm Tim Lightus, City of Tillamook Public Works.
I'm Sean Berger with City Tillamook Public Works.
Ashley Rushing. I'm assistant to city manager in HR.
We lost Sierra. I got more people coming in here.
Are we all introducing ourselves?
Yep.
I'm Margaret Page.
Jody
Realtor-
King.
Realtor extraordinaire.
I'm Skyvie from More Realty, and I've got a business downtown, so interested from both aspects there.
So can we just turn it over to you guys at Public Works to kind of just talk to us a little bit about sort of how we
There's
came
Cindy.
into the kind of talk about the lateral line piece. I think one of the things that's really interesting about that lateral line piece is that we often tend to think about what's leaking out of those pipes, but one of the big issues for the city is what's leaking in and how that impacts treatment and cost to the taxpayer over time.
Inflow and infiltration. Yep. Tim or Sean, you want to go first, or
Kenny,
was that?
I'll start and I'll let you fill it in as we go. That's how it work for you. So
Yep.
A while back, I'm going to say back into the 70s at least, there's an ordinance that says basically if you have a leaking sewer lateral line, you have give or take 30 or 60 days to have it repaired once you're notified. And so we've run into that in the past, to the sewer lateral lines being broken, letting I&I come into that. And then what happens is the property owner doesn't have the money to fix it. So then they come to city council. City council then tells them it's either okay or makes some other arrangement. And in the meantime, the sewer laterals keep on leaking, which then impact the sewer plant. So Kenny trying to come up with our block grants and work with a way, how do we get the sewer lateral fixed to get the I&I done and match it when the property owner has the most amount of money to deal with a leaking lateral issue. And that's where we come up with the new part of the ordinance. So the old part, you have to repair it, has always been there. The new part, and Kenny can correct me if I'm wrong, the new part is now at the property sale, that's when you have a negotiation, just like you would a bad roof or a broken foundation or something else defect in the house. That would be identified, and then it could be negotiated between the buyer and the seller. That's when the most money could be added to, like a mortgage or part of that cash down payment piece to get that sewer lateral fixed. That was generally our intent. Anyway, I don't know, Kenny, if you want to pick it up from there.
No, and yeah, that's definitely the intent. We're trying to find a reasonable time when this could take place, and trying to make it as painless as possible. The first go around, so this sewer lateral ordinance that's in place now, the current part that most of you are aware of, that was put on a moratorium for 90 days. That went to Public Works Committee meeting at least half a dozen times. It went to City Council meeting at least twice, and third time it was ratified and in effect. So, did we get it perfect the first time? I don't think we did. It went on moratorium. We met with some of the realtors. I met with some plumbers. I talked to the TBOR title people about what's the issues on this new ordinance. How can we make it better, suit everybody? We get what we want. It kind of, you guys get what you want. Obviously, nobody's going to get everything they want on probably either side. So, meanwhile, we've come back, we've updated it, cleaned it up, I think, to make it hit what we need, but also allow some more flexibility on the realtor side. So it doesn't have to be done before the close of a sale. They cleaned up whose responsibility. There were some gray areas on the responsibility part, so we cleaned that up. And, you know, I think overall it's a good product we come out with, but is it perfect? Probably not. Are there going to be holes in it? I've never come across one yet that there isn't. So moving forward, when stuff comes up, we'll fix it as we go and try to keep making it better and better. That's been my goal since taking over the supervision of the wastewater treatment plant and collection system, is to clean our ordinance up. And that includes laterals, step system, tanks, the whole thing. It was in need of the attention. So we've begun that, and we're working through the process of getting it where we need it. And we're definitely open to input and suggestions. You know, we want this to be a good thing for the city and for the citizens of Tillamook. This is our goal. At least that's my goal.
So I think just quick overview of the ordinance. Essentially, at the time, when a transaction takes place and a new owner of record steps in and goes to connect their water service, they'll be asked to provide proof that they've had the lateral tested. Once that proof is kind of submitted and processed, that will run with the property in a file at the water office for 10 years.
Right.
And so some questions about that like have come up for me are around, you know, the way you get that check mark is at the point in which the customer hooks up for water, right? So if you had a for sale by owner and somebody else, you know, and somebody who's unrepresented buys it, nobody informs anybody about the rule. It won't be until that new buyer goes to sign up for water that will get triggered, right? Is that how it works?
That's one way it would trigger it. The other way is I keep track of the sales in the city limits, and we'll, you know, once we get this more dialed in, we'll start.
How do you do that if details of sales are confidential except to the principals? So you keep track, you don't keep track of the sales, you keep track of the closings? Is that what you're doing?
The sales, like the tax record part where it transferred.
So the closings.
Yeah, Margaret, I'm guessing that what he does is keep track of the recordings.
Yeah, that's what okay.
And I think, Kenny, one of the concerns that I have, and I'm guessing a lot of folks have, is that, you know, we all know this, but if you have an agent from the metro area representing a buyer, and they get to go flip the water over, at that point, chances are we've already closed or just about to close.
Right.
And then they in a situation where, so I would personally love to see that somewhere in the transaction, or even as part of the title company. Sorry, TBOR, more work for you guys. So that we don't have we don't end up with a situation where you've closed, they go to switch the water over, and water clerk says, "Oh, sorry, we can't do that until you give us a clean sewer scope."
It is especially important with for sale by owners. Because the owners,
Right.
once it closes, the sellers are gone with a pocket full of money. And
So
now
I
you're
know-
holding the buyer up for ransom.
I know that you've tied this to the sale of a property, but I guess my question is, have every homeowner in Tillamook has not been notified that this is the case?
Obviously, we don't have the resources to go house to house, person to person to talk to every single individual. That's why we've
I
got
mean,
the public
wouldn't,
meetings and the
yeah,
public.
wouldn't it
notification.
behoove maybe like a mailer? I mean, is that within the city's resources to give people the heads up that if, that way they can plan that if we're selling a house, we need to, look into this?
And that's
You know,
probably probably not your thing, Kenny. But I think I would agree with Catherine. If there was a way to just send a postcard to every household in the city of Tillamook saying, "Hey, if you're going to sell your house, be aware."
So, Adam, question, you run ads in the newspaper, right?
I don't.
Or, I mean, some of you realtors do. Do you ever add disclosures like that on certain things that are required?
I think that's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
I think there are certain things that we're required to disclose,
But not in an
I
ad.
don't know.
but not in an ad.
Okay.
But I obviously you don't have to do that. It just strikes me as something that's, I mean, how Ashley, do you know how many households there are in the city of Tillamook?
So
No.
I have a question, maybe more Tycor might be able to answer. So if you're out in a rural area, you have a well, the water resource requires a back key and a nitrate sample. How does that function going through a sale? Could we piggyback that process?
Well, the thing is that all of our forms are regulated by the state, and as realtors, we're protected by those forms because of the legal counsel. So it's something like this. We as agents have to act within our confines of what our forms and our, information is telling us. Putting the burden of this on a sale kind of goes counterintuitive to what we're taught as real estate agents. So, and there's many ways that things are going to fall through the cracks on this. I mean, if a buyer doesn't know until they're going to switch over the utilities that this was needed, that's a huge deal. I mean, people don't always use Tycor. They use out of area escrow agents. We've got a lot of out of the area brokers working in our area. So I can't think of a way that through the real estate process, you're informing everybody. I think the only way to do that is for you to physically send it out to the homeowner's mailing address, not their, not rentals, but their mailing address. So there is a chain of, you have been notified about this, because there's no way to do that in the real estate transaction that is not going to have people falling through the cracks until, oh, I'm trying to switch over my thing and this wasn't done. That's kind of a big deal.
They're not
And
going, we're not going, you're not doing an extra thing if you're getting ready to mail out your new tax things for November anyway. Why can't there be some sort of thing that goes with that? So you're not doing an extra mailer, but you're notifying people of these changes.
Well, that would be the county that would do that. I don't know if you could work with the county to put some sort of insert into that. The other thing that we could do to kind of
PUD allows inserts.
There you go.
Sure. I would leave that to the city to figure out how best to notify, but I think it is wise. It would be wise to notify people as much as possible about that. One thing we could do, we could work with the Oregon Association and create for our use for a specified form, just like we have for water tests. Like, I mean, that's going to be more of a rear end covering more than anything.
I don't, forgive me, but I don't see this as being a problem for the realtors. It's in our area. The problem is going to get created with the out of area realtors
Yeah.
and with the
That could
for
be.
sale by owners.
I would
And
agree
what's
with
gonna
that.
happen is you're going to see a slew of lawsuits. At the
Which is
court.
why the homeowners need to know this stuff.
Yeah,
But I guess that's why I recommended if we, just as we have a form for water testing for wells, if we have a form for the sewer scope, it can also delineate who's going to pay for what, and it's going to protect those of us who do know about it.
the form is a great idea, but how many for sale by owners do you know actually get the water test on a well and send it in?
Right.
And the difference is when the buyer moves in and goes to open the kitchen tap, the well works.
Right. I'm not saying that. I think my point is you shouldn't sell your house for sale by owner. That's
Well,
a
no
lot of
kidding.
problems. I think my point would be to protect us as agents, who that way there's the form that we can use. I'm just trying to cover as much as we can. I do think the city should reach out to homeowners, do that. If we have a form that's going to be able to help delineate who pays for what and lays out this ordinance on how it's supposed to work, that covers us. For those folk, go ahead.
Something typically like this would be covered in, like this would come up in either a CCNR or an HOA or a title search. That's how you learn about the things about the property that you may not know. So is there a way that it can be attached to it in the documents that every person who's buying a house would receive? I mean, I think that's the main goal, is to make sure that anybody buying a house knows this needs to be done. Otherwise they won't get their water turned on, or it will be on their burden to make a repair within an X amount of time.
So I'll just interject really quickly. I think a couple things. First of all, I think that there is a tool, a variety of ways to attach this to title. You know, if you sell property in Lincoln City, every time you get the title report, Lincoln City has gone out of their way to make sure that the title report includes every single link to their urban renewal TIF district stuff that applies to that property, even when it's bananas and irrelevant to the person who's buying it. They get that in their title search. And there's other places, right? Like, is it up north? Is it Nehalem that connects so that when you pull the title, they require the title company to do some work prorating per day, and that happens at title. That's flagged
Utilities
through an escrow
utilities.
process. So I think that,
Absolutely, utilities.
and I'll just say this, I think from our perspective as real estate agents, the way that this ordinance was written single-handedly adds value to us as local agents in a way that nothing else we could do could. And so why we're making it so hard on you when you've made us so important is a little bit ironic. But I think what we're pointing out in is that there are other tools about how to do this that might make it cleaner for everybody involved, and sort of connect it through title to these properties in a way that will make it more consistently enforced and create less liability, not even for us as agents, but for the city and for the sellers and property owners. And there's probably, if nothing else, starting with some kind of attachment within the water bill is going to hit 70% of property owners.
Sarah, I was going to see if I could interject. I brought Brooklyn in. We're up here in Seaside, but she is an escrow officer here in our Seaside branch. And she had some input just kind of on the water bills like we do in Warrenton, and that might be similar to what's happening down there. So this is Brooklyn Dunham. Everybody.
So what we do is we have a deal with a lot of the cities up here, Warrenton, Astoria, Seaside, to where we reach out to them and say, hey, we have a file going. Here's the buyer's contact information. Sale should be closing as of this date. Do you have a final bill for me? And a lot of times they say final bill for this closing date will be this amount. And then we always check with them week of closing, making sure that amount hasn't changed, as well as if the closing dates change, we let them know new closing date is this date. can we get a final bill for this closing date? And they give it to us. And then we make that final bill to the city, which is usually water or water and sewer, depending on how that city bills everything. And we make sure that's paid through escrow. So the seller doesn't have to worry about that bill to the city at the very end of their transaction. We make sure that happens because the city does have the ability to put a lien on the property, and we ensure that that lien won't be placed on the buyer's property once the transaction closes.
So those are some things I think that are great tools for the city to kind of take away as options. I don't, are you guys interested in hearing more about that, or should we pivot a little bit? What do you think?
I wouldn't mind if she emailed some of that information to me or to us. You know?
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
If you wouldn't mind typing your email address into the chat box, then we can get some information over to you.
Yeah.
The one question I have with that is it seems like the discovery to a buyer, unless you are like us that know the new ordinance, wouldn't be until probably a little bit towards the closer to the end of the sale, which is probably when they are already past their due diligence period. So from a principal broker, I'm not a principal broker, so I would have to ask my principal broker, but my question is, how does that impact our sale as far as liability goes? Not for us agents that know, but for other people. You know, you find out that you need to have this sewer scope done, you're already past your, so is that create a way out for a buyer, or are they, do you see where I'm going with this, agents?
Catherine,
Well,
I think
yeah.
if I can add anything real quick, if the city were to move forward with sending out proper notifications, that way a seller at least was attempted to be reached by the city with this new ordinance, then really, I think what you're talking about would fall in the disclosures made by the seller, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So I think what everybody's probably on the same page with here is the fact that we're concerned right now, just making sure that all of the sellers within the city limits are aware of what they're being required to do. And so Kenny, I think one question that I have that's come to mind is when you guys are looking at the property records online, what happens if somebody just simply deeds, you know, the property to a family member? I mean,
That's addressed in the ordinance, Macy.
Okay.
I don't think at that point that a lateral inspection is required, I believe.
Okay.
I believe that's correct. I believe family transactions are excluded. But so one thing that I've come to recommend for sellers who are getting ready to list in the city of Tillamook is just go have it done. There's a 10-year, it's good for 10 years. So you can go have it done. You're good to go. Or if you discover, holy smokes, there's a bunch of separations, we need to have this addressed, you can get on the calendar, because I have one of these going right now, and we had to delay. We had to figure something else out for them, and it delayed us a month. So, but if a seller can go ahead and have that done and they know they're going in eyes wide open, that's beneficial. And then if a buyer wants to do their own sewer scope, because this is just honestly, it shows that there's no separations or bellies or problems that day. Then a buyer can go ahead and do their own sewer scope later on. But at that point, the seller has done what they are required to do.
There's a couple things. I'm not opposed to sending out a flyer to every single homeowner. I don't know what that costs, probably whatever, it's probably worth it. Second is, when you're buying a house, you do have some personal liability to do your due diligence. The city can't do every single last thing for you.
Oh, no, Kenny, come on, man. No. However, if I can make a suggestion that would be very helpful to everyone, is put together a list of inspectors with their contact information and a list of contractors who can do the work, and make that available on your website, a hard copy, because another issue that you've got when you post something like this, surprise, surprise, is people don't know where to turn. It takes a while for the realtors to build up partnerships. I can't imagine how a seller would go about finding somebody with the right equipment to do a sewer scope.
Yeah, I get calls on that every week.
Yeah,
That's
put
okay.
together a list and just, what's your email address? Boom.
Yeah, and I would, I think probably a good thing to do, as I was thinking about this, we talked about PUD, we talked about sending out a postcard. You guys already send out water bills. Maybe for a month or maybe even 2, include that in the water bill saying, hey, FYI, if you're thinking about selling your house, this is an issue. And then talk to your real estate professional. We'd always appreciate that, about the details. But I like what Margaret does. I mean, what's Margaret saying, the DEQ puts out a list of septic installers in the county. And so if you're wondering who a septic installer is, who does the license and does the work, you can go to DEQ's website and there's the list. So, obviously you don't have to put them all in there, but if you've got, Kenny, you've probably already talked to 3 or 4, I'm guessing, who you could just put on the list and say, these guys will do the work. These inspectors will do sewer scopes. Not making any recommendations of who to use or to use any of them, but that gives, especially those folks who maybe not be working with a realtor, an opportunity to go, okay, if I go here, I see a list of people I can call.
Make sure they're licensed. That's a
you don't do that,
quick internet search.
That is a problem. So in the cross-connection control, we have backflow device testers. And it sounds easy enough, but we used to produce the list and then put it out because the state has a list. Any list we produce, they have to have, first of all, the contractor's license, and it has to be up to date. They have to be licensed with the state. That has to be up to date, which means if we put them on the list, somebody has to check it. Just because they're on the state list doesn't, on the drinking water section, their backflow device tester, they still could have an expired business license. And so it gets to real sticky. So, we try to back away from any lists.
Well, we have to check and make sure that any contractor that we recommend is licensed. It's not that hard.
Can you do it for us then, Margaret?
Maybe that's something the realtors can do. Really, it takes 1 minute.
That might be something that we can do as a service, and we put our logo on it, and there you go for core standards, Jody.
But hold on just a second, because those contractor, whether or not somebody's licensed, that changes in real time, right? It's easy to put up a list of people who have done this work that you're familiar with, and then just have a disclaimer that before calling or confirming or hiring any of these people, anybody who is going to use them should just confirm that their license is active.
I think we could confirm once a year. To say, here's the list for 2022 and make sure that they're all licensed, and then put a disclaimer underneath that encourage you to do your own due diligence. Contractors were licensed as of January 1st, 2022, blah, 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 blah.
See, realtors are a whiz at disclaimers.
Yeah, we got a lot of them.
Perfect.
Comes from a lot of getting sued.
Yeah.
So can I maybe point this direct a little bit? Can you talk us through the process about the scoping, Kenny? Because that's something that I think has been a little contentious, is whether or not city staff needs to be present, what kind of scopes you're accepting for review. How does that piece work?
Okay, so right now how the ordinance is set up is I need a 5-day notification. We've kind of waived that at this point, where the ordinance is going before council, I think next week again, to clean up some of that, because it sounded like 5 days was too long, and you wanted it tighter, so it didn't slow things down. So we're adjusting that to 2 days. And then I want the notification. I'd like to be there if possible. If not, get it recorded, send it to me. However, the lateral does need cleaned. I've had it both ways where the lateral wasn't cleaned and one said it was good, the other one said it was bad, and it turned out to be opposite after the clean. So they got to be cleaned. Otherwise, sometimes you'll get lucky and the line's clean enough to where you could tell, but for the most part, that's not the case. So the line needs cleaned. One thing we didn't put in the ordinance, which would be a good thing for the realtors to suggest is to have that line located out from the house to the main. That way, if it does need fixed, it saves the owner a little bit of money on not having to have the line located again, or located, so then the contractor can fix it. But that's a separate issue. Does that clarify on that?
Yeah, so essentially the ordinance is requiring that at every transaction, not only is the line that the lateral line gets cleaned, the lateral line gets scoped, and then any repairs that need to be done are done. And then, but there's also an element about the clean out piece, right? Because I have sold homes that did not have clean outs that have been installed, but the line was still good. So where does that leave us?
So if there's no work to be done, we're not requiring a clean out to be put in. If the line's tight, straight, flat, that doesn't require a clean out. If there is a clean out that needs put in, if there needs to be work done to the lateral, we're requiring, technically it says two, one at the 5 feet of the house and one within 5 feet of the right of way. But I've been real flexible with that, and because some of the houses are 20 feet away from the right of way, so it doesn't make sense to put two laterals in at that point. We do have some houses that are 300 feet away from the right of way. Now that makes sense to put two cleanouts in. So the houses that are real close to the right of way, I've just been requiring one clean out installed when repair or replacement's required. That makes sense.
Whoopsie.
There's another piece to that too, state plumbing code. You're supposed to have a clean out just outside your foundation on your sewer, and you're supposed to have a water shutoff valve between your water meter and your house. Now that can go anywhere. They like them somewhere close to the foundation to find them. There's a lot of houses that are sold, so when your plumbing inspection is happening, they should be locating those for your customer so they don't call the water in a panic, because we don't do quote emergency shutoffs like that. So if it's leaking and running into your floor, it's your job to turn your water off. So those should be located for the new property.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
And it's a little bit of a loaded question, so bear with me for 2 seconds. So let's say somebody does like occupancy before closing, or they're already an established renter and the landlord wants to sell. So water's already in that buyer's name, and then so it kind of falls through the cracks and the deal gets closed. And then later you guys discover that, like, hey, that transaction closed and nobody did the lateral scope, the sewer scope. Who is the one that has to fix that? Like, who does that burden become onto? Is it the seller that sold and is gone and moved out of town or whatever? Or is that on the buyer? Is it on the current homeowner, or is it go back to the one that sold it?
So Brooke, that question got brought up last week, was it, Ashley, or the week before?
Yeah.
And we come up with a way to address that. Now, that's a very good question, because it's like, okay, inspection didn't get done, the house is transferred, new homeowners in there, but how the ordinance is written right now, it's the previous owner is responsible before the sale, right? So it didn't get done. It's kind of hard to go back on the past owner when they don't own the property no more. They're going to be like, well, whatever, shut the water off, you know? So
Yeah.
what we've done is we've added a piece of ordinance that will be going forward that says, if you don't have a current cleaning inspection report on file with the city, the new owner will be responsible. If you don't have that inspection on file with the city within 60 days of a sale or transfer, then it will go to the new owner. So that comes back on the due diligence part that, you know, if you're buying a house, you really need to make sure you check everything out and don't go in blind.
Okay,
That
thank
makes
you.
sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Kenny, I will say I'm in the midst of one of these, and you've been very helpful. I had the sewer scope done. I sent Kenny the video and the comments. Within a few days, he was back to me, and we knew what to do. I guess I get a little concerned of what happens when you go on vacation, Kenny, or you get busy. Is there a plan of what happens? Because we're in a very, we have 10 business days. That's our due diligence period. We have 10 business days. So is there a plan of how that is going to be dealt with if you aren't reachable, or you get busy, which you certainly do, or you're on vacation, or how do we deal with that?
Those will be forwarded to Sean, Tim, or my lead guy, Ryan, and then they'll handle it.
Yeah, I was going to say, we just ran into this here the other day when Kenny had a family emergency. And so there was a property owner selling his house, and he had the plumber there scoping it. So we just had Ryan, which is Kenny's lead, show up, watch the video inspection, so to keep things moving. So it's not all dependent on just Kenny.
That's good to hear. Thanks, guys.
Anybody else? Kind of questions from the audience?
Jody, I have a question for Jody. Jody, are you still on?
Yeah.
Do we have any education planned for the realtors who are local board members but are not aware of this ordinance?
We don't currently know.
Do you think we should have?
This is being recorded, Margaret. I think we're going to email this one out. And I mean, obviously we can't force them to come, or can't force them to learn.
Careful.
But I think I'd be open to doing more, but I think we will
make sure they get this video.
And you know, if we make this video last 15 more minutes, it will count, I believe, as continuing education. No, that's huge. That is huge.
Yeah, I know. That's me. I can
You
do
can
it.
get realtors to a meeting, give them continuing ed hours. Free.
I know a lot of you guys, and I'm sure you can make it go another 15 minutes.
Sherry's looking at you, Catherine. I was going to ask another question, and this is just this is not the first time you've heard me voice this concern. I think it's clear to me that the implementation of this ordinance, while stressful for us, never mind that noise, I'm sure it's fine.
You're getting remodels too.
Yeah, I am. Well, stressful for us. The reality is that this is not that different. It's just another element of what we're already doing in terms of encouraging inspections, all of those kinds of things. But so it will quickly slide into something that we just assume as a new normal, and will just be another small headachy step in the course of our work. But what this ordinance does is invite a lot more work into the public works team's schedule. Like, you have an already full-time job before you pass this ordinance, and now you're attending these sewer scopes, now you're reviewing video, now you're advising on these things and going back and checking to see what homes have sold and doing all of these other pieces, I just wonder at what point filing for this 10-year certificate comes with a fee. And is that on the table? What, I think that's something that I wind up being concerned about. Have we taken on an ordinance that's going to wind up creating more cost in the process, and we're not being transparent about that or thoughtful about it from the get-go?
With that being said, if the city has to attend already, wouldn't there be a way to just come up with a set fee that the city actually does the scoping and cleaning and the people just pay? Because that would eliminate all of the scheduling issues that we know. I mean, we can't get inspectors. It's so hard right now to schedule anything. And if the burden is being put on the buyers and sellers by the city, why don't they just pay for it at that time?
Well, we don't have the manpower to do it. Honestly.
But somebody has to
You've
be
got
at the
You've got the
scope.
manpower to be at every scope.
We try to be at every scope, but we're not.
Kenny, the problem is we're on private property. We're still on
Liability.
private property. And so that's where we get into it. In the water side, we've had our hands slapped by the plumbers union for being on private property where plumbers should be. This lateral is exactly the same. We can't move off of our property. Very few extremes will allow us to get in there without getting our hands slapped. So that comes down to how do we get it done, and basically, I don't know how many of your houses actually have inspections. And I assume that part of that inspection is the plumbing. And from my understanding with a plumbing inspector, the lateral going to the sewer main is all part of the plumbing. You have pressure and drainage. And so some of the things they should be checking in at is the traps tight? Are you getting sewer gases in your house? And this is all just a piece of it. And so, when you have a house inspector, make sure it's doing it all the way to the lateral and out to the main.
But I'll just point out that the way that this ordinance reads, none of our inspectors that we've been leaning on to do this are now eligible to do this because the pipe has to be cleaned.
Yeah,
So
they can't clean it.
We can't use our inspectors anymore. We now have to find a plumber who's able to come out and do this and clean the line and do the scope.
And it's tripling the cost to the buyer at the same time.
And I mean, I don't know what to think about that, because I also know that Adam just had a transaction up in Nehalem where Nehalem Wastewater came and scoped the line for him and ran the camera and was able to do the whole thing. So it just
Adam, there wasn't a belly, was there?
There was a
Didn't
small.
Nehalem Bay wastewater say it was fine?
There was a small belly, but not outside of the realm of what's normal. I think, guys, one of the concerns is, so we got two concerns. One is a plumber to clean the lines would be $600, and God help you if you try to do it during hunting season. They're just all gone. I mean, it's probably 6 weeks out. So that's an issue that we need to get around somehow. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. I'm saying that we need to get our heads together and figure that part out, because that is going to be a real big issue. The other side of it is, Kenny, you and I, we just did this one where I sent you a video. It worked well. I mean, it worked really well. I would love it to say, send us a video, you're good. Let's not even worry about getting you out there. I think that makes it a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier for us. But the cleaning part, that's going to be a challenge. And we need to work together to figure out a way to make sure that we address the concerns that you guys have, but also not going to add $600 of inspection costs, as well as an extra month and a half of time when we have 2 weeks of due diligence period.
Yeah.
And we don't have to figure it out today, guys. But
I was concerned about that as well, because I'm trying to be conscientious of that. So I talked to some local plumbers here, and maybe they were just being generous, but the price I got for a cleaning scope from the couple plumbers I talked to was $300 to $500. I thought that was pretty reasonable, but I don't know if that's accurate or not.
So
Well,
Kenny,
to have a home inspector do it, it's usually an add-on of about 150. So you get more people to agree to do it because it's more affordable.
what I have found is there are a number, well, there's very few plumbers actually that do the scoping because they don't have cameras, although it'd be a great investment. But on another note, the plumbers who do have the cameras don't have the means to clean them, to clean the sewer lines. So what I just recently had happen is, well, it's in the works, but they had to hire somebody to come and clean it and then hire somebody totally different to do the scope work.
Okay.
Could the city provide or come up with a form where a licensed professional has to fill it out, just like you do for DEQ for septic, that says what you want them to verify is done? And if a plumber signed off on it that was licensed and bonded and insured, wouldn't that satisfy what you're looking for in the line?
It comes down to that same thing I was talking about earlier, where I've had laterals that were inspected. One said it was good and one said it was bad, and neither one of them were cleaned. So I didn't accept the results. So after they were cleaned, they both changed the opposite way. So that's where it is just important for the line to be cleaned, to get a good inspection.
So
It's
another,
like looking through a pair of dirty glasses. You can't accurately see what's going on.
so for the outside of the ordinance, are you able to provide a rundown of what you are requiring? That's like a breakdown for people so that it's easily, to say it does require cleaning, something you can give a plumber and say, I need all of these things done as part of this.
Well, I think it's pretty simple. The line needs cleaned, which means jetting it, and then camera. I mean, that's a two-part list.
Could the city actually provide the equipment necessary? Just literally kind of a lending library of the equipment?
I mean, we have the equipment, but I don't think that wouldn't be a good policy to do. I mean, because
Why?
we get the liability, our camera gets stuck in a line, they can't get it out, then they got to dig it up. Then they're like, well, this is a city equipment.
It would
It's their
get you,
responsibility.
but it would get you around the issue of a lot of plumbers don't have the right equipment, a lot of home inspectors don't have the right equipment, and you'd probably get more testing done easier.
Yeah, don't want to interrupt, but the council's already made quite a while back, several years back. We used to loan out barricade signs, cones, everything like that. Now we send everybody to the rental center. And so I don't have any problem talking to Sean down at the rental center and have him see if he can get a line cleaning equipment. He may already have a camera, and then anybody can go down there and rent it. City's not involved in it, and they'll have the equipment on hand.
That would be a good thing.
He's been very good to stock signs and stuff, so contractors working in town can go down there and get what they need. And he has contacts where he can actually bring other stuff in for big projects. So
and Tim, I think it's kind of our policy. We don't compete with other businesses in town that have equipment that's.
Yeah, I think the rental center is a great alternative.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Kenny. That's why that ordinance and stuff went in from the council, was so we don't compete with anybody in town.
So I would love for us, and I don't know who, but somebody, to get us a list, or maybe we just all need to individually call around and figure it out. I don't know. Or maybe this is something the board can do, leadership can do, is call around and ask plumbers, do you clean lines? And if the answer is yes, then we have their names and they'll be able to call around, at least, because I think one of the frustrations that we all have right now is we don't know who to call.
Yeah, that's a
Not
problem.
Ghostbusters. We don't know who has this equipment and who doesn't. So, I mean, I'll call my go-to plumber and see if he has it. But I'll also call others as well. my worry is not so much the cost. I mean, my worry is the cost, but that's my larger worry is if we end up in a situation where, you know, they're a month or 6 weeks out, that's going to be a problem. So I don't.
I had a leak in my bathroom under the sink. I called 4 plumbers up in the area. The soonest somebody could get out to fix it was 3 weeks.
You didn't try no
I live
flex
in North
seal?
County.
Hey, so to address that part, Adam, is the new little bit of ordinance change gives us a lot more flexibility on that. So it puts it within 60 days of the buy or sell. So it's 60 days before and after, and then you still have the appeal process. So that should make that stuff a lot more doable.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I guess my concern is going back to what we were talking about. We close, week later, they get the line done and scope it, and thing failed. And so now there is no negotiation, and the person who just bought the house, who very well could have put every penny they had into a down payment, now has $7,500 worth of work they got to do, or their water's going to get shut off.
Well, and that's a big deal, because right now, although it's a great time to sell a house, it is a hard time to buy a house. And if we can't guarantee these buyers are going to know about it before, out of disclosure or whatnot, that's a tricky situation. The other thing about it is this is based on a time where prices are sky high, and we don't know what's going to be happening in the next couple of years. So what does the ordinance say about foreclosures or distress sales, those types of things, if our economy does turn and there isn't money for the seller that bought their house 2 years ago and they're trying to get out of something? Is a repair still mandated if they're losing money on a house?
We don't address the economy part of it. That's not really what we do. What we're trying to do is eliminate I&I so we don't have to raise our rates so people can afford to live in their houses. As far as that, let me see here.
And Catherine, that might be a call for Nathan when he's here, because when foreclosures kick up and you want me to get a hold of US Bank to get them to clean a line, they're going to tell us to go to the deepest, darkest part of hell, and they'll just get somebody else, and it'll be a terrible situation. And there's going to be some unintended consequences of that one as well. But I think that's probably more of a question for Nathan. But because I think we all understand where you're trying to get to, and I think we share that goal, because I don't think any of us want our water and sewer rates to double. I think our concern is just some of these unintended consequences that I think we can work through together and get a win for everybody. But I think we still have some work to do, and I think probably the next conversation is going to be with Nathan on that, because I think we're going to go roundy round.
Yeah, nobody's going to ever get exactly what they want or everything they want. So
I get that.
We're trying to work through it.
And I think there's ways that we can achieve what the city wants to do, as well as protect our clients. But I think we just need to keep working on it.
So can I just a couple more things before we kind of wrap up, because it's been a solid hour now. So one thing is, you guys have been doing the smoke testing, and I've had people ask me in the course of that smoke testing, are you identifying residential lateral lines that then those property owners are being flagged and told they need to repair laterals that are being called out through that smoke testing process?
Some of them probably will be, yes. I haven't got the reports back yet, but we did. There was some notes of smoke coming up in yards or roof drains. You know, those are cross connections in I&I. And so, you know, that we'll be addressing that.
And so I have wondered about that. Just I've kind of gotten that question in the field. I think that the other piece is, you know, this 10-year certificate. I think that there's this instinct that we have to say like, oh, well, once it's been done, it's good, right? The certificate's on file. We don't have to worry about the hammer of nobody being able to get their water transitioned again. But there's no, I think it's just important to reiterate all the time that 10-year guarantee means nothing in real time. If that lateral line is in perfect shape today and you issue that 10-year thing, and tomorrow the Hampton truck goes fully loaded down the road and rattles that lateral apart, that just because that 10-year certificate is in place doesn't mean the lateral is solid. So this should not just be a matter of achieving a certificate. This should be a matter of caring for our clients to make sure that they don't wind up with liability by not having these things tested.
So I'd like to address that as well, Sierra. So with the new ordinance, that this updated version of this latest version, we removed that piece because we had this conversation and that was a valid concern. So the new ordinance will require inspection anytime a house sells.
No more 10-year certificate.
No more 10-year certificate. Actually, there won't be a certificate. Your video inspection will just go on file with the city. If your house does sell, it'll need an inspection. That way, you know, if it's good 2021, the house sells 2022, it's good. Sells 2023, it's bad. It doesn't go till 2030 being bad. So that relatively small expense is a pretty good insurance for a homeowner on that big a price tag for what laterals can cost.
Which is a perfect pivot to the next thing I was going to ask you about, which Nathan has talked about, and I've heard some discussion about this through city council several times. It sounds like there's access to a program that communities as a whole have to buy into that allow for kind of lateral insurance that would cover a lot of these costs. Can you guys speak to that? Should we wait for Nathan? What does that look like?
That's kind of Nathan's deal. He's been spearheading that part. As far as I know, Ashley might know something, or Tim.
As far as I know.
I know that he's very excited about it.
So that feels like a really important reason to do sort of a part 2 of this. I'll just tell you what I know, which is that there is a company that does essentially lateral insurance. And in order to access it, like a one-off homeowner cannot just call in. The community as a whole has to sort of, it's not even buy-in, but the city, within the city limits, my understanding is that they have to sort of register with this program. And then the city sort of helps promote people signing up for this program. And the idea behind that is that you'll get enough people who register, who pay this $7 a month or $15 a month to have the lateral insurance, that don't have bad laterals, that it covers the costs of the ones that are bad. I suspect that we do not want this program to find out how many bad laterals we have before we sign up, because their math might not work out, but that would be a huge tool if we move forward with that. So I think it's really important for us to know and understand that. And I think that we're also in a position to really help explain and promote that to buyers and sellers. So
yeah, I think that might be something that we can all tell when folks and you know, especially if something like that, Shauna, could be done through escrow. I think that would be a great idea to have the real estate professionals being able to really encourage it, get people to sign in, sign up for it ASAP.
As I was saying that, I was talking over.
Models.
Was that you, Catherine?
And I have a copy of all the times written down. I can send you.
They probably want to mute Kenny.
I don't have the control to do that.
Kenny,
Anybody else, any other questions? You guys have anything? I think if we're gonna do kind of a part 2 with Nathan, it'd be great to sort of give him some framework on how to prep. Anything?
Sierra, I've got a couple of things, and I was hoping Kenny was going to be here for this, but I recognize how he touched base on the cleanouts. And I think a concern or question of mine is what happens when the city, maybe isn't available to be present when this sewer clean and scope is being done. How are they determining whether or not the appropriate cleanouts are there then, if they're just being sent the video? So that was one thing that kind of came to mind. And then also, what is the city requiring if there's a shared lateral line? What time is it when they're being repaired? Is that when it's needing to get fixed?
We had a possible party line come up recently. It ended up not being one, but the inspector just wasn't sure, because he's not a plumber. He was just doing a scope. And Kenny had told me at that point that it would have needed to be repaired. So it wouldn't have gone through like it is as a party line.
And I will say, Macy, it's been my experience that when an inspector is doing a video, they will announce where they're going in. I hope they continue to do that. They're entering at a 3-inch clean out at this part of the house, and then they go in. Not having done a ton of sewer scopes, I say that to my own shame. I don't know if that's kind of industry practice, but every single one that I've done has done that.
So one interesting thing, and I don't know, I've done a lot of sewer scopes over in Portland. It's pretty much every transaction you're having it done. But the school of thought over there was you wouldn't jet a line before you had an inspection because it could potentially clean out tree roots, which fails a sewer line. So the fact that they're wanting you to have the sewer line cleaned and then scoped to me, just based on my past experiences, isn't the way you would do it. It could hide tree root intrusion, and that would be a big deal. That's a failed line. And if you jet it, it massages the tree roots so they grow at a faster rate after it's done. So you would have it clear. I mean, granted, usually tree roots are in a line that may have other issues. So hopefully you would see that. However, cleaning out a line is just cleaning out any problems that you might see prior to it. I mean, so it's a really interesting, I don't know. It's very interesting to me because this is counterintuitive to so much that I have learned working in Portland with multiple plumbers and sewer companies. So it's interesting. I don't know. And also I would go to wonder if this creates liability for the city. If something was wrong with a sewer line and the city's the one that signed off on it being fine, who's responsible then?
I guess I would say to that, because that's been brought up is, when I look at a camera inspection, I say, okay, this has got a belly, it's got cracks or whatever, or it's good. Now that's where we're cleaning up our ordinance. Is my video working?
It's frozen.
Are we working now?
I think I can see you and hear you.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're good.
So, that inspection is really only good for that day because they could change. Really, you're getting less than 50% view of the condition of the lateral. You're only getting the inside of the pipe. You're not getting the outside. You're not, if there's any water in it, you can't always see. 50% of the line is the best view you're going to get of the condition of it. So, because one of the plumbers asked me about this, he's like, how do I certify that this is good? Well, you could say, this is good for this day, right? At this point in time, I'm saying that this is an acceptable condition. What happens after that happens after that. The truck could drive by it 5 minutes later and crush it and it's done. There's only so much control you have.
But if you do have a root growing in a pipe, that is a failure. how did that root get in there? Had to have a hole or a crack. So, like I say, there are some things kind of coming through there. I don't think we're unreasonable on our inspection. I'm not sure what Portland does, but any place I've done camera work and or sewer repair work, there's roots in the lines they have to be fixed.
Yeah.
And so,
That was my concern, is that jetting might get rid of the roots if it wasn't a big enough crack that you would see it once it's been jetted. I don't know.
and there'll probably be a few cracks that might get by, but very few. Usually if the camera is done right, you will be able to see, especially in a 4 or 6 inch line.
I've got one last question, I think. Kenny, when you mentioned that you aren't going to be sending out any sort of certificates moving forward, do you just simply send an email then to the client saying, hey, looks okay by me, and that's all that we should expect to get?
Yeah, and then it'll be attached to the property file.
Okay, perfect.
That inspection and my note on acceptable or not acceptable.
Okay, awesome.
So I think, does anybody have anything else right now? I think where I'd love to go from here would be maybe to just kind of executive committee can kind of reconvene with the city. I think it would be fantastic if we could get that copy of the ordinance to send around to membership with the link to this Zoom video. And we'll work on sort of that part 2 follow-up with the city manager and kind of, if anybody has questions that come up or you think of things after this, if you could send them along to me or Jody, we can relay. I think that also it's just worth noting, you know, I loved you. I know you loved us. I think it's worth noting that it's really great that you guys are looking at ways to address the situation, because there's no doubt that the sewer situation in the city of Tillamook has been a disaster for a long time. It's been expensive and it has not been getting better without change happening. So this is uncomfortable. It's not that fun. You're getting a lot of wrath for change, you know, being the bearers of this bad news, and sorry about that. And I hope that we can, through this process, work on how we can be better as more things continue to change and be part of sort of the communication. Because I do think that, you know, we're selling on one side or the other most of the properties in the city of Tillamook, and welcoming people to town in a lot of ways, and can be really good representatives of the city's policies and introducing people on how to connect. So I hope that you think of us that way and not just as the pitchfork crowd.
What about torches?
You need the torches so you know where to throw the pitchforks.
Yeah, see you at night. I appreciate all your guys' comments, and you know, like I said, we're just trying to do, you know, what we think's right for the citizens and for the city of Tillamook long term. We want to be proactive instead of being completely reactive, and this is our, you know, kind of a start to get things going in the right direction moving forward. You know, once once we get it all dialed in, then it's really easy to keep it that way.
So I think the other key piece we need to put in too, Kenny, is, you know, part of what dictates how much more we can build out the city of Tillamook, build new homes. We know there's a housing shortage in this city, is the capacity of our collection system. And right now, we don't know what that capacity is. It's being studied, and an engineer is going to give us that result. But the more I&I we fix and address gives us that ability, ensures that ability, that we can continue to grow and expand and to bring in new homes and develop more property. And so this is pretty key of getting this done. We can only do so much with our lines, but when the property owners start fixing their lines, that works together so that we can keep Tillamook continuing to grow instead of tapping out the capacity of our collection system with all this I&I that we're dealing with. So if it's a goal that we all really need to work together as a community, it's not just so much the city or the realtor or the property owners.
Absolutely.
Yeah, appreciate your input. Like I say, the goal has always been to reduce the I&I. And, you know, we're not perfect. And made some notes on your comments. Definitely appreciate them, and we'll be looking into them. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Kenny has a really great PowerPoint presentation that includes some really horrifying data about the amount of water that's being put out versus the amount of water that's being treated. And it's a lot more is being treated than put out from the way I remember that PowerPoint. So, you know, it's a big deal. We get it.
Is that available for everybody to see, or how did you get a hold of that, Sierra?
Well, Macy, I'm an enormous dork who goes to city council meetings.
Oh.
And but Kenny, do you still have that around? Could you send us the link?
I'll have to dig it up, but yeah, I think so.
Well, I would also, if you could put the link in that mailer or that notification to the public saying, and this is why we're doing this, it will be a huge positive PR move.
I agree.
Good idea.
I agree, Margaret. And that's one of the good reasons why we're sitting down and having this meeting. We've done that before. It's definitely doable. I think that's in everyone's best interest.
Can I ask another question? I know you guys probably love me right now. About the main repairs that you're doing, that's continuing to happen, right? Is there a program, if the real goal is to fix the massive amount of sewer that's leaking into our area and just figuring out a way to do that, wouldn't it make sense to notify all those homeowners that this would be a good time to get your lateral scope, see if you have an issue, and then we find a plumber that's willing to take on a larger project and get the cost down for everybody? So it's more of a working together at the same time to fix an entire area. And that seems like that would solve the problem in a faster, better way than waiting for somebody's house to sell. I mean, what percentage of homes is really going to sell in the next year or two?
That we've kind of done that with our 3 block grants that totaled $7.5 million. And I think we fixed 5 miles of sewer main and around 100 laterals. That sound about right, Tim?
Yeah, I think a few more laterals, but you're right in the neighborhood.
But
Maybe
if one
150
plumber
or
was able to fix 5 homes on the same stretch with the same equipment in the same time frame, it seems like that would get the cost down for everybody concerned as far as a homeowner goes.
We're looking at all options. We're looking at all options. That's up for discussion.
And I will say that when I was at the chamber, we wrote an urban renewal grant to do the stretch that of oh gosh, is that
Fifth Street?
Fifth Street between Main and Stillwell. And we did, I think, 11 laterals on that stretch. And, you know, I think that the challenge, and it was exactly from that perspective, we knew that they were all going to be crushed. We knew, you know, and I think the challenge is that who is the person that's the project manager on that? And in that particular situation, there was this variety of commercial and residential, and there was a bunch of stuff that sort of played into that. And I don't know what the total cost was. I think Urban Renewal spent $100,000 on.
I think that was about 150 for that total.
So I don't know. If that makes sense to do that in a block by block basis. I will tell you that my calendar is pretty full and I'm not coordinating those block projects. But it's certainly, and I think that the other thing will be just sort of how practice changes from, is this something that we deal with the way that when we negotiate a transaction now and the buyer leads the inspection, we've seen a handful of listing agents start to get pre-inspects. How, you know, it'll be interesting to see how our culture evolves around this. Will every buyer come and lead this, or will we be able to convince our sellers as we list to pregame this? Because I think deals implode over this issue, right? Like, I don't know that I could talk a seller into it, but on the other hand, if you can get your seller to pony up for the clean and scope and you set your price and disclose, and almost pre-negotiate, there might be merit to that. And that I think is just our real estate work.
Yeah, that's,
Okay, I'm just letting you guys know, I have another meeting that I have to be at, but I have taken down all of your guys' questions and stuff, and I will be getting back with Nathan, and then I will help him follow up and get all the questions you have. In the meantime, if you have any questions that you have not addressed today and want to later, you can email me. It's in the chat, and then we can go from there.
Thank you. I've got to leave also.
yeah, I think it's winding down.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Jody, do you so you have the recorded piece? Do you want
Yes, I've never done this before, but I see it recording up here. So first I have to figure out where it goes and what it is, and I'll be happy to send it out.
Okay. Let me know how I can help about that. I'll follow up with the city.
Okay. And you know, as realtors start to build some sort of a list of people that we know are going to do this, I can totally put together something and make it a link on our Flex. So you just click on it and you can find the contractors, and I'm happy to put that together.
Yeah. Well, and I think even, you know, even now it's one of those things that I don't know if, like I was thinking about, we've had really good luck with Ryan Vandercoovering for some of the lateral things, and just posting, and I should post that in that TBOR page.
Yeah.
Say, hey, this guy doesn't suck, just to get that name.
Right.
And I do think that this is just going to be one of those things that everybody will get less pissed as they get used to it.
Yes, I agree. You know, and it is essentially, like you said, it's going to be in every deal. So you're just going to get used to it. It's just going to be part of every deal from here on out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to happen in other cities too, you know, so.
Oh yeah. Especially since Leanne Welch was the driver behind this, and now she's in Bay City.
She's in Bay City. Yep.
Right,
Yep.
on the wall for that one.
I'm just expecting it. Yes.
All right. Well, hopefully that wasn't too awful for everybody. And
I think it was important for them to be able to address it. So that was really good. And yes, we can totally give CE. I have to find out which Christy I had on. They don't know when I asked, and I never got a response. So
yeah.
But yeah, but we can totally do a 1 hour CE for it, and yeah, and do more. We can do more. And that's what, you know, I'm hoping that next year we can start meeting together and really get some education popping. And I'm just done with this whole, I have like 6 Zooms this week. I'm so over this Zoom stuff.
Yeah, I don't mind meeting in this format. I think it's just coming up with the plan and then executing it, you know?
Yeah, I'm in so many different places at different times. It's like, crap, in the middle of my day, I have to stop and find some Wi-Fi so I can have a 1 o'clock, you know?
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
here's the part that you don't. Are we still recording?
Oh, we are.